Hello and welcome to Politics Today. In today's programme we'll be discussing the appalling knife crimes and gang crimes that we're seeing across our capital, and also be asking what can be done to keep not only our streets safe but also to protect so many young people from a life of crime and also gang crime. And it's with absolute pleasure on today's programme that I have Robin Travis, who's a former gang member and now an accomplished author, as well as Neville Watson, who's a mental and community activist. Welcome to the programme. Let's start off with you, Robin. I mean, you've got quite an extraordinary story behind you. You were a gang member. You know, you've been shot at, you've been stabbed, you spent time in prison. Can you share with us your story of how you got involved in gangs?
First of all, I'm actually, for the first time, not offended that it was presented as a gang member, because I know it comes from a genuine place when you said it. But I've never been in a gang in my whole entire life. And I don't even believe in this new notion that they're calling gang members. The book is called, that I wrote, it's called Prisoner to the Street. So for me, I'm just trying to explain, even the term post-Cold War doesn't come from a genuine place in terms of the media promoting it, because the areas in which it started with myself and others within Hackney, we both share the same postcode. And it started with Holly Street versus London Fields, and we both share E8. So what's interesting is the dynamics of how words are used. Yeah, I was never in a gang. I have a past of being on the street and having a mindset which was self-destructive. As I've come away from that way of thinking, I've looked back and I wouldn't say ex-gang member by any means, but ex-prisoner to the street. I'm not naive to the fact that there are some gangs, but we really need to look at what that word means. And if you don't mind me reading something from the book.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
Which kind of explains, at the back it says, I don't believe in the term gang. Yes, I've had a violent past and made reckless choices. I'm not proud of it, but it's too easy and lazy to throw around this gang label. We were just a group of multicultural children who lived on common ground and shared a similar struggle. I'm not trying to say I'm just some victim of circumstances. The truth is I became a victim of my excuses. There was a strong community, but we also came from broken families, poverty, and had crime, drugs, and violence all around us. This social deprivation caused misguided pride, confused loyalty, and thinking we had an extended family on an estate. Now, I won't read the rest of the back of that, but the whole point is this is a guy who's going against the whole narrative of what has been played upon as gangs and post-Cold Wars, and I'm trying to bring everybody back to the human before the teenager. That way you can have more empathy and understanding for a person, the individual's behaviour.
Yeah.
If we keep looking at it from the way the media like to promote it as teenage thugs and youth this and youth that, and gangs and all the rest, we seriously miss how to fix the problem if we focus on...
Okay, but can you share a bit more of your life about how you got involved in some of these activities? You know, what was the allure that you were attracted to, and what's the type of behaviour that you got up to?
Funny enough, this is why I say prison to the street. It's not as cliche as the stories that you always hear, but for me it's very basic. And in the early parts of the book we're taught, or I teach in the book, because even though it's a story, I'm trying to teach. And I draw for certain experiences where I can show you a message. So for example, earlier on in my life, I got hit on the estate, which I mentioned in the book. And I come inside and my mother says to me, "Why is your face all pushed up for?" Typical Caribbean thing to say. And I said, "Because somebody hit me." She said, "Well, what did you do about it?" And I said, "Nothing." You know what I mean? It is what it is. Now, my mum's reaction was, okay, well, you can't let people keep putting their hand on you, and you can't keep being a punching bag, more or less. And it wasn't the first time I've let things slide. So mum got frustrated and said to me, "Go out there and defend yourself." And I did exactly that. I learned a lesson that day that sometimes you have to defend yourself, or it doesn't stop. or stand up for yourself, not necessarily finish, stand up for yourself. And that's a message that when I wrote in the book, I think every person, individual who read that book laughed at that line when I read it out loud, because everybody could relate to that line. And it just shows me a culture. Some people who read the book said to me, oh yeah, I think it was wrong that your mother taught you that. And I'm thinking, well, who are you to judge? My mum's a single mother living in an estate where she's already suffered racial harassment, as you'll see in the book and stuff, but it's like, who is anyone to tell that woman what she should have said in terms of defending her children? And as we got older, things changed. I learned that defending yourself is the way to kind of, just to survive. I went to primary school, and in the book as well, there was a guy who kept troubling me, myself, and another guy, or everyone, but he thought I was the best fighter, so he wanted to test the best fighter. I wasn't that type of character. I just used to defend myself, and I got a reputation for somebody who could fight. And then this guy started the school. He used to really terrorize us, to be fair. He's from Somalia, war-driven country. Probably had an AK-47 when he was 6. He's at the time when he's probably used to real trauma. He had a scar on his face. And that was my first test in life of fear. I was so scared of the guy, I didn't want to call my brother. Now, the reason why I'm telling you this, because you asked me how I get involved, and I'm saying how we get involved is, this is how we get involved. It's learned behavior. We learn how to deal with conflict at a young age. Now, I wanted to call my brother. I was so scared of this guy, but a part of me told me this guy would beat up my older brother, so I'm not going to do that. And I had a fight with him out of anger one day. I won't spoil the story for anyone. And yeah, that fight changed the course of my life, because I realized no matter how scared you are, if you stand up for yourself, people won't keep walking over you. The only problem with this specific individual is that he wasn't like the rest of the British children that I had fights with. He had a fight on Monday, and he wanted to go on Tuesday, and on Wednesday, and on Thursday, and Friday. So he actually taught me a war mindset, in a sense, where you just have to be prepared for it every day, win, lose, or draw. I then moved on and went to other schools, and it's always the same thing. You start a new school, you don't want to be the victim. So if somebody tries it, push you in the playground over football, it could be the most trivial argument. It's just about how you deal with conflict at a young age. And then before I went to secondary school, I won't say too much, but how you asked me how I got into it. Before I got to secondary school, I made a vow to myself to go back and meet all the individuals who troubled me in primary school. I wanted to fight them fairly before I started secondary school, just me and them, to the point where I knocked on people's doors, and at my old estate, the same guy hit me. I said, oh, hello, is whoever there? And she said, oh, how you doing? Because we moved out the area. And I said, yeah, I'm fine. What's his name there, please? And she had no indication that I came there at the age of 11 to fight her son. But in my mind, I was fixed. I need to go into secondary school confident. I don't feel that I'm confident yet. And I'm about to go into a school with yeah. So that's how we got involved. And then when weapons become a part of it, everything changes. Because when I got stabbed, my mum's first words to me was to leave it with God. And my words were no. When I got hit on the estate, he told me if anyone does me something, I'll do something back to them. Well, I know I'm 14, I know I've been stabbed, and it might be hard for you to digest, but I'm definitely going to kill this guy. And that was my response at 14. So then it takes you right back to the beginning. Did my mother teach me violence, or did she teach me to defend myself? And then she had no expectations that we would be using knives amongst us. So, yeah. And
can you share one of the more kind of scary experiences that you've actually faced? Maybe a life-threatening situation that you've been in.
Again, because we're talking about how people kind of form these gangs or groups. Trauma. As a child, you have trauma, traumatic experiences, and you want to, without having intelligence to understand that this is what you're trying to do, but you're trying to minimize those experiences. You're trying to become comfortable with the idea of violence. So even if you got butterflies, I used to suffer with butterflies all the time before a fight, you want to get to the point where, okay, I don't want to have these butterflies. And so if an argument starts, I'm not going to wait 5 minutes until the butterflies build. I'll probably start the fight first. So when you say in terms of fear, I think I kind of went past a certain stage of fear or scary experience. Getting stabbed, that wasn't scary to me. Nearly dying and realizing the next day, okay, you could have died. I won't say it was scary to me. It was more like, oh, wow. It made me more on defense. More so that will make a young individual more violent, more less trustworthy, more, I have to watch my back more. So that doesn't necessarily mean I stay in my house, but it means that I might attack you before you attack me. Because it's a war mindset, and it's over nothing really, but it's a war mindset. You don't want to be the victim. Nobody wants to be the victim. So nothing was really scary for me, to be, if I'm totally honest with you. I've had guns put to my head, had people shoot at me, been stabbed numerous times, and that's I think the problem was I wasn't scared enough. I think I was so busy as a child being terrified that when I got to that secondary school stage and things and this is the mindset I'm talking about, not gang members, forget the notion, we need to understand the mindset. I got to an age where I realized, you know what, the best way to face fear is to go running at it. So if 30 boys came at me with knives, and I'm not going that way, going straight at them. My mentality was, you better kill me, because I don't want to survive to come back for you, because I'm not evil enough to, but if I have to, I will come back for you. And that was the mindset then, so.
And how did you get out of this? You know, because you know, you've written a number of books, particularly this book, Prisoner to the Streets, and to actually come out of it, you're an inspiration to a younger generation with what you've been through and your experiences. But what was the turning point for you, and how did you come out of this lifestyle and culture?
Let me say, come out of it. Like again, I wanna. It's so hard to talk on this topic because it's already been painted and fixed a certain way. So when you're given another narrative, it might leave people lost. But when you say come out of it, like some people say to me, okay, well, you've done great with your life. You wrote a book, you changed your life, etc., well done. And I'm like, no, I was never born as a thug on the streets, stabbing and shooting. I was raised as a child, like everybody else. People talk in first letter and say, yeah, I'm from the streets. No, you're not from the streets. You was raised in a house first. I'm pretty sure of that. So the question I always say to people when looking at the problem is, what made you get into that in the first place, which you asked, which would be about trauma or being a victim, and being able to break down the real reasons why you change your behaviors and become so defensive. And then the second question, yeah, is important. How did you get out? Well, I prayed a lot. I used wisdom. I weren't following the crowd. I didn't feel like just because you told me I had to go and kill this person, I had to. Because when I got stabbed, you ran, so you don't really have the right to tell me who I have to. You wasn't even brave enough that day yourself. So I realized that from a young age, that what my peers said didn't matter. I wasn't a follower. I was like, I don't even respect your point on the matter. It doesn't carry weight. You can't say I'm a coward because I didn't do this when you ran when that happened. So I learned from a very young age, don't let the pressure of what anyone else says. So for me, it was, to be fair, it could have gone drastically the other way. I'm fully aware of that. And I put it down to prayer without spoiling the book. There was a situation where prayer changed the course of my life. That was 14 years ago. My son's 14 now. And I believe if prayer didn't interject, I probably would be coming out of prison now. Which means I would have not got to do all the things I got to do. But I made a promise to the Most High at the time that if you give me a chance to prove who I really am, because I'm not really a guy from the street, none of us are. So it's what the media tells you. We're not born with hoodies on listening to grime music. Born as human beings not knowing good from evil, and then we come in and then we start learning along the way. And we don't know how to behave because the world's already evil. So how do you counteract evil? By being good in the world that's already set up before you. So for me, I came back to being who I was. I didn't change. The streets is where I changed, where most of these young people are changing. That's not who they are, that's the facade. That's the act, that's the front.
Yeah.
I just reverted back to who I initially was, with a bit more wisdom, yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for sharing your kind of remarkable story with us.
Thank you.
Neville, I want to bring you in here because you know, you're such a father figure to so many people like Robin and others in your community. And can you share with us really what's the main cause? Is it culture? Is this music? Is it the glamorization of kind of this gangster lifestyle? Is it lack of father figures? Is it a lack of care or interest by the Mayor of London, the government? What do you put it down to?
You see, I think that's one of the challenges we have, is where you're trying to find one answer to that.
Yeah.
One specific silver bullet type thing. And let's fire that off and that will solve the problem. We have a challenge, but it's all the things that you've mentioned, Simon, we could say it's all of the above. It's all of them put together, isn't it? And so what we have to try to do always is look for the solution, go into solution mode very quickly. Because I think the point Robin made, none of the young people that are involved, either directly, indirectly, really would choose. Now, you may say, well, no, they choose it. No. It's often chosen for them. And sadly, they become victims of circumstance. And of course, we want them to create their own circumstance. And it starts from schooling, education. It starts in the home, and it's what the young people are seeing very early in their lives. And the thing that we often don't want to accept as parents is our responsibility as parents. And we use a term. It was a friend of mine used it. We say it's BIPS, B-I-P-S, bad irresponsible parents. Okay, but that also can be an oversimplification of it. But parenting is something we need to look at. Parenting, not what we are saying as parents, because it's easy to just give out lists of instructions and orders to our children, but it's what our children are seeing. It's what are our words and our actions, are they congruent, or are parents saying one thing and they're doing something different? For example, Robin's example of Mum rightly saying to Robin, well, defend yourself. Go out and, well, okay, defend or attack, whatever, i.e. giving Robin a protection mechanism so that he can survive. Mum rightly said, well, she was saying, I can't be out there with you. I can't be physically there with you every minute of the day. So you're going to need to do this so that you can survive in your environment, right? Yeah. It's not judging rightly, Mum, was that right or was that wrong? Mum was doing the best Mum can do. Now, of course, Robin then makes a decision. Robin goes, and then, of course, Robin follows Mother's instructions. Okay, so what starts the process? So we look at the type, and that's not saying that was bad parenting. That was the best type of parenting in that situation. And what Mum was doing was giving him the best information she can do to help him to survive. So innocently, that has created a situation that Robin went out, and then Robin, of course, defended himself, but then that, in defense of himself, then could be seen as, well, was he the victim, or then does he become the perpetrator? So then the two things conflate together. So schooling, so from home, then schooling. Too many parents are just allowing their children to be raised by the school. So we say, okay, we bore these children and now the school takes over. That's not right. Our parenting skills and what we do at home still matters. The schools are there for academics and to give them that sound education in terms of them get a job and go on, get what they need to do. But lots of the life skills they're going to need, the communication skills, are going to be taught at home. How they react to situations are going to be taught at home. The skills they need to cope in the world actually should be taught at home. And that is where often it's fallen down. It's not happening in the home. And that's not always purely because parents don't want to do it, because often parents are caught up in surviving themselves. So they're trying to make the best they can do for their own lives. So they sometimes just don't have the time to give to their children. And so we have them learning those skills, i.e. amongst with their peers, be it in the estates, where they mix with their friends, in the playground, they're picking up, or often, sometimes from music. Now we go into, listen to music videos, but they're learning, aren't they? They're learning all the time from these different mediums that are coming into them, from the TV, and everything, even from the games, the computer games that they're playing. They're actually learning something from there. And so that's where they're getting their form of education. But these are what I refer to as WMDs. They're weapons of mass distraction. And they're weapons of mass destruction as well. And that, sadly, is where the problem, but there also lies the solution, and we have a solution as well.
Absolutely. And Robin, what do you think of the solution? I mean, if we take, for example, the London stabbings this year, there's been something like 62 stabbings this year. And it seems like a whole generation is being lost to these kind of violent crimes and knifings and shootings. What's your answer for redemption? Someone who's been through that, you know, you've been to university, you're now a prolific author. How can you guide someone who is thinking about entering into this kind of culture and to say that actually God's got something much better in store?
I just want to go back to something Neville said quickly, if that's okay, about being taught to hit back. I didn't add in a story because I'm writing a book. My mum also told me, I think it might be in a book actually, but she also told me, if you run up your mouth in your estate and you're in the wrong, don't go calling your older brother to defend your battles. She also said, do not be wrong and strong. My mum would have never defended me knowing that I'm someone who's starting trouble. So as a father, I've taken the exact same parenting methods. I've told my children the same thing. If anyone's child at school hits you, hit them back. Now, some people say, well, how can you say that and promote something of peace? And I'll tell you why. What my mum did, she raised children with manners and respect. A lot of parents didn't raise their children with manners and respect. The person who came and stabbed me, his parents didn't do the best job in my eyes, because cheating is cheating. And it's not to even blame the parent, but it means that something that my mum said to me was so significant, I honored it. I didn't stab anyone till I got stabbed. I didn't cheat anybody till I got cheated. And for me, that's where the streets has gone wrong. Nobody wants to admit it. Everybody keeps talking about the system and about this and about that, but the reality is, the rules of the house should have been able to be the rules of the community. So when I got stabbed, it should have been, oh my goodness, how can Robin be getting stabbed?
Absolutely, that's a natural.
And that should have come from, and oh my goodness, how comes Robin getting stabbed outside of his friend's house in front of their mum? Disrespectful. So when that disrespect set in, that's when my whole morale changed. It happens to a lot of young children. That was my entry into becoming a prisoner to the street. Not a gang member. I realized these guys ain't got no integrity. I already beat you up and you come back and stab me? But you stab me when there's another 30, 40 guys with you? And you call older people to come and help you? Okay. So we don't turn to the police. So the natural reaction is, okay, this is for me to sort out. Police don't show me any love in my community when I was younger. So it goes round in circle. And what I'm trying to say is that it's the mentality of not keeping core values why the community is messed up. That's why years later, off the back of me getting stabbed, I always say to people, this is when Hackney went wrong and these communities went wrong, because no one stood up and said, hey, even though I'm on the street and I'm selling drugs and my life isn't correct, as an older generation, he shouldn't have got stabbed as a young man. He beat him fairly in a fair fight. We should be teaching our younger generation not to do it, because then that's when it becomes self-destructive. And when I got stabbed, I saw my whole area turn upside down. So for me, the solution is knowing the problem. To bring it right back to itself. I know what the problem is. Whether people are honest enough to say, you know what, I'm a coward, I got beat out and that's why I stabbed you, I can't make anyone change. I can't make you be true of yourself. Nobody can.
Neville, down to less than 4 minutes of the programme, sadly. I'd like to go on, but time is permitting. How can we save this lost generation, and what role can the church play, do you think, together with the local authorities and government and what have you, to actually protect this very precious generation that's currently lost to us?
I think the first thing is to change the language as well from the start, at source. Let's get rid of this term gangs, gangsters, and that because all that does is serve to embolden people, and it doesn't really speak the truth. And that's very good for the media, and it sells papers and headlines. What we have are prisoners to the street. And if they're prisoners to the street, that means they're held hostage. And if they're held hostage, what we need are hostage negotiators. And what we have to start for, and those hostage negotiators, in fact, could be deemed as mentors, community mentors, peer mentors, because we need to really show our young people, before they even are tempted to become prisoners to the street, because that's what they become. They become prisoners to the street. What that life will actually lead to. Now, for some, you could say that would make a difference. But we need to actually share with them another way. We need to actually, from very early on, show the pros and there are no pros in that. I would have liked to. I don't have time to. Can I?
Very briefly.
I don't know if I've got time to read that a statement. It seems like I won't have time to do that. But I would just say that it's important that what young people understand is who they are. They are prisoners to the street. And who we are and what the role the church can play is become a hostage negotiator. Go out. The churches should be the centre of the community. Young people should be able to go into churches, go into the church halls, and it should be open to them to get counselling, get support, because many of the young people I speak to are actually, young men particularly, are living with depression. Now, that start of depression is not recognised. It's seen as aggressive behaviour. And so, unfortunately, if that's then perceived as aggressive behaviour, the sorts of interventions that are given do not address the underlying issues. So we have to address some of the underlying issues, and that is the churches can play their role in being part of the solution alongside arm in arm with the community. And, of course, people like
Robin, I'll let you have the final say of the programme. I think you deserve that. And can you explain to us about your book and how this can encourage and inspire a so-called lost generation?
Well, God willing, thanks first of all to Junior Spence at Pray for the Youth. There's an event on the 4th of May where the young people come and pray for the youth, and the churches, some people made a couple of pledges for the book, and I was able to give out books for free. So I want to say thank you there. And basically, for me, just getting the books into the schools, onto the curriculum, and I believe in prevention. So if I was to get into the schools all across the country from year 5 to 6th form, I always say to people, don't question it, just measure the work. Allow me and people like myself to go in and do a workshop on prison to the street. And then off of the back of that, we'll see a change. Once we're allowed to change the mindset from young across the whole country, then I can, without me guarantee, I believe that God's given me a vision, this will change.
Fantastic. I just want to thank Neville for being my guest on the programme, and also for your remarkable testimony and where God's taken you now. So wish you God's strength with all that you do. So thank you for being my guest on Politics Today.
Appreciate it.
And I just want to thank you for watching Politics Today. We have to reach out to this lost generation. Not only do they need prayer, but they also need support. They need father figures, and they need mentoring. And you know, let's stand with them so that we can reclaim the streets for God. So thank you for watching Politics Today.